Hi everyone, thank you for joining Star Property Awards 2022 Virtual Showcase. My name is WK Ng. You can call me WK or Ng. In this session, I shall share, should I buy my first home during post-pandemic? Before I introduce myself, I would like to thank Star Property being invites me to share in this showcase. I'm chartered accountant. I worked 5 years as external auditor. 17 years in Dell. I was Dell Services Director for the last 4.5 years. Currently, I'm Director of GM Training Academic PLT. In this company, we provide loans and mortgage training. We also organize seminar and property stock, like what I'm doing now. I'm sure you would like to hear from someone who walked the talks with experience. I'm a property investor. Together with 10 other authors, we wrote Buying Property Like a Pro. This book is top 10 best-selling books in MPH. I always advise home buyer and property investor, before invest in property, invest your own knowledge by reading property-related books, magazine, and attend courses like now. Latest information and knowledge will enable you to make a good and right decision. Like in this book, Buying Property Like a Pro, there are 11 authors sharing their first home buying experience and mistake made. In property investment, it is too costly to make a mistake. Learning from this book will prevent you from making mistakes. If you watch Astro TV reality show, I'm one of the candidates in Anyone Can Be a Property Millionaire, led by Dato Sri Gavinti. There are 6 experts to share their knowledge and experiences. We will meet and learn from successful property developers and investors, while the candidate learn how to invest property in right ways. TV audiences also learn together with us. There are properties learning trips to various states, and I am a Gold Award winner. I'm sure this question always pop up. Should I buy property during this post-pandemic? If you read newspaper, the higher unemployment rate still in report and still a hot topic. I'm sure you want to wait for the price to drop. But however, during post-pandemic, the property price is not that affordable. And there are overhang properties in various states in Malaysia. The data talk itself. A chart shows a better picture compared to 1,000 words. Let's take a look at Malaysia House Price Index and growth. Let's focus on blue-colored bar. Blue-colored bar represent index point, and it starts from 2010 of 100 as a base. Index point grow from 100, steadily grow over years to 2020 of 200.3. It grow from 100 to 200.3. What does this mean? It means that from 2010, property price double in 2020. Wow. Just imagine, if you bought a house worth of 500,000, by 2020, which is 10 years later, the house price increased to 1 million. If not 1 million, should be 900,000. It's an average number. How nice in property investment. As for the line chart, represent year-over-year change percentage. In 2010 to 2011, the house price increased nearly 11%. The next year, from 2011 to 2012, it grew again to nearly 14% and continued to grow 11.2% in the next year. So from 2010 to 2017, property year-over-year change percentage is above 6%. However, in 2018, it posed a slower growth from 3.3, 2.2 to 1.2 of 2020. If you borrow money to purchase a house, I'm sure 3% and below increase in price is lower than the interest cost of 3.5%. But don't forget, you stay in the house, or better still, if you rent a house for a renter. I thought 3% increase in price, still a good return. After share with you property price index, let's take a look of gross domestic product or GDP in percentage. GDP measures the economic size of a country quantified in monetary terms. Generally, economic analysts considers a country healthy if real GDP is increasing or expanding. Its economy is said to be booming when the GDP is increasing. Let's take a look of Malaysia GDP growth percentage. Malaysia GDP growth at 4% and above in 2019. It dipped to negative 17.2% in Q2 of 2020, due mainly to MCO. Still in negative growth range in 2020 next following quarters, due mainly to EMCO. But it rebounded sharply back to 15.9, almost 16% in Q2 of 2021. Negative growth again in Q3 2021, due mainly to FMCO. But it's back to 5% range in Q1 of 2022. During pandemic, when we read newspaper, some employees were retrenched. Many cannot find a job. Let's take a look of unemployment rate in Malaysia. Malaysia unemployment rate at 3.5% range before April 2020. Surged to 5.3% in April of 2020, due mainly to MCO. Now it inched down to about 4.1% in March 2022, when economy reopened and recover from coronavirus disruption, which means we are at a healthier position when economy is reopened. More than 95% of people have job. Let's compare where are we with the advanced country. Singapore and Germany is much better compared to Malaysia. We are almost at par with United States at 5.4%, in fact, better. And far much better compared to Italy and France, which is 9.3 and 8% of unemployment rate. Majority of house buyer take a loan to buy a house. If the borrower didn't pay installment within 90 days, bank will classify the loan as a non-performing loan. Malaysia non-performing loan ratio as high as 9.5% in 2006 and gradually reduced to 1.5% in March of 2022, meaning more than 95% of borrowers service their loan. We should thank to Bank Negara for taking fast actions, announced 6 months bank moratorium during coronavirus hit. The borrower can defer loan repayment for 6 months. This is the most helpful initiative to the bank borrower. For those who take loan to buy a house, there are costs associated to the loan. The lower the interest rate, the better to the borrower. Bank lending rate as high as 13.5% in 1998. Average at 6.4% in the past few years. In March 2022, bank lending rate as low as 3.48%. With the pandemic, slow in GDP in recent time, thus, Bank Negara cut interest rate to the lowest level and hope to spur local and domestic consumption and further spur up the economy of Malaysia. The financial environment has become conducive and attractive to the home purchaser. For the borrower, the biggest financial obligation that you have to deal with is the monthly installment for the next 30 years. And now also see a reduction. Comparing to the number of 8-9% borrowing rates, or even double digits in the past, it will cost you less to pay every month because of the decrease in the loan interest rate. With this, the negative sentiment may just turn into positive and would really help the property markets. Let's do a quick summary of the economy data and trends. House price doubled in the past 10 years. GDP bounced back immediately when economy reopened. Unemployment rate also at the trending downward. More than 98% of loan borrowers servicing their loan. And interest rate at favorable to loan borrower. With all the data at positive trending, let's see what are the good schemes that offer for the first home buyer. Good news for the first home buyer. My first home scheme allow up to 110% financing from participating banks. Without this scheme, homegrown buyer is allowed to borrow up to 90%. And now you are allowed to borrow up to 110%. And this scheme covers primary and secondary residential properties. Now, please note that under HOC, Home Ownership Campaign, you are allowed to purchase only primary residential property. Full stamp duty exemption or memorandum of transfer and loan agreement for the home loan price below 500,000. Monthly household income up to 5,000. And please note that owner need to occupy in the property itself. And agreements need to sign from January 2021 to December of 2025. For the first home buyer, you have time. If you are not ready and you have time to to market around and need to sign the agreement before December 2025. Let's quantify what will be your saving if you were to buy 500,000 worth of property. As you can see from the table, without home loan scheme, purchase price of 500,000, you are allowed to loan up to 450,000 only. Whereas under my first home scheme, you are allowed to loan up to 550,000, additional of 100,000 for your renovation and upgrade of your house. As for stamp duty on MOT and loan, totally waived, 100% waived under first home scheme. There are total hard saving of 11,250 with additional of 100,000 loan for renovation and upgrade. That's right. From the example, 11,250 is a huge saving, which home buyer can go to do up a good kitchen and buy some furniture. My first home scheme is a good decision in reducing the burden of purchaser and to ensure recovery of housing sector and economy in general. Stamp duty exemption also extended to secondary market, which give first home buyer more option in the house hunting quest. That's right. If you are a first home buyer who can't afford to buy a home just yet, you still have 5 years to plan and your financing till 2025. Whether full financing or affordable price, it is a lot less costly to purchase your first home if you do your due diligence and find out exactly how you can benefit as a first home buyer. Beside my first home scheme, first home buyer and the buyers can benefit under Home Ownership Campaign or HOC. Home Ownership Campaign was introduced in 2019 and to encourage property ownership and also help to clear the backlog in property market. It was reintroduced in 2020 and extended to end of 2021. Now, housing is state matter. YB Jadip Singh from Penang has extended HOC to end of June 2022, which Penang people can still benefit from HOC for the next 2 weeks. Under HOC, stamp duty exemption on instrument of transfer for the property price range from 300,000 to 2.5 million. The first million, there will be 100% waiver of the stamp duty, and the balance will be charged by 3%. 100% stamp duty exemption on loan agreement from 300,000 to 2.5 million. A minimum of 10% discount from developer. This is the commitment from developer. They will give at least 10% discount. Here, we'll show you the saving of stamp duty. Without HOC, stamp duty need to pay is range from 1 to 4% for the property worth up to 2.5 million. Under HOC scheme, property worth up to 1 million will be fully exempted for the instrument of transfer. As for the 1 million to 2.5 million house price, saving of 1% stamp duty. Instrument of securing loan will be up to 2.25 million. Stamp duty of 0.5% without HOC scheme. And under HOC campaign, stamp duty are fully exempted. Now, what will be your saving if you were to buy 550,000 worth of property? Without HOC, purchase price of 550 and stamp duty need to be paid. Under HOC campaign, developer give 10% discount from 550 to 495,000 and full stamp duty exemption for the house worth 550,000. Total saving of nearly 68,000 hard cash. Who is eligible for HOC? Purchaser and co-purchaser need to be a Malaysian citizen. Only residential purposes. Service apartment for residential use only. No limit to number of purchase. You can purchase as many property as you want and as you wish. 70% margin of financing limit lifted for the price above 600,000. Without HOC, if you purchase the third properties, 70% of margin of finance is imposed. You can borrow up to 70%. However, under HOC, for the price above 600K, 70% of margin of finance lifted. Now, new property need to register under REHDA, SREHDA, and SAREHDA. For this case, for Penang people, only REHDA. S&P must be stamped for Penang case before 30th June 2022. Now, REHDA President mentioned that extension of HOC bring a positive impact to the industry and to the market. I'm sure you would like to know what are the property value and transaction during the health crisis. Under HOC scheme from June 2020 to February of 2021, 25.65 billion of property have been sold. You might read the newspaper saying the market is not affordable, market have no money to purchase. Let's see, what are the property sold value? 37% of the property sold range from 500 to 700,000, whereas 28% of property sold range from 300 to 500,000. Surprise. Higher value at a higher percentage. More people buy higher value of property during health crisis. This proves that if you have a good campaign, if you have a good offering, if you have a good scheme, buyers are willing to pop up higher cash and to purchase a higher value properties. Buyers upgrade their properties. As for property types, 36% of service apartments sold, followed by 29% of double-story terrace. 19% of condominiums sold. More high-rise properties sold during this period, which is expected because of scarcity of the land. Let's see, what's the Rehda Survey? Increased optimism. More economy sector will reopen due mainly to ongoing vaccination program. And this will bring positive spillover to the property industry. It's a good news. As for the cost of doing business, it will be increased due mainly to compliance costs, SOP, especially shortage of labor. I'm sure you know that some of the labor was sent back or gone back to home country during the health crisis hit. If you were to rehire them back, the costs have been increased. And also increase in steel bar prices. It's not only steel bar prices, other prices in the building costs like cement and other material costs. I'm sure you agree with this. Not only the property developing price increase, the fish and the chicken price in market also increase. Now, Star Property reported, when property market confident returning by 2022 and brighter second half property market outlook. At the beginning of few slides, economy data has shown that they are moving in a positive, encouraging trend after the business resumed and economy reopened. Let's see the actual transaction of property activity during and after pandemic. Let me read to you, as the wording in the chart are too small. Yellow color bar represent the actual transaction in quantity, where the line represent actual value transacted. Let's focus on the data in 2020. Volume and value dip in Q1 and Q2 of 2020 due mainly to MCO. V-shaped recovery in Q3 and Q4 of 2020. Now, volume and value dip in Q1 and Q2 2020, where the MCO created a sudden lockup when majority of business activity was frozen, and V-shaped recovered in Q3 and Q4 same year. Q1, Q2 sudden lockup, and the business was not prepared. And Q3, Q4, even with MCO, some of the agent, property developer are working towards online viewing of houses and new projects. Some of them even using online contract signing and with e-signature. The recovery of V-shape can be proven that the data that I showed to you in HOC actual data, where high value property been shown under HOC compared to 500,000 and below. Last but not least, I would like to share with you rent-to-own scheme that the first home buyer can consider. A potential buyer enter into contract, a lease contract with developer that first rent the home. And at the beginning of the contract, they lock in the good purchase price with developer. And the contract might be 5 years or longer. And at the end of the contract, the tenant have the option to purchase from developer. And this commenced in 2020 for the property's price up to 500,000. Of course, stamp duty is also waived. So there's a hard cash saving. And let's see who is eligible. It's a Malaysian citizen, and for the first home buyer only. We need a guarantor from your family. And the combined household income above a certain amount, and usually 5,000 and above. This scheme is suitable for those who without 10% down payment, and the first home buyer who still building a credit score to be eligible for a loan and not sure if you are not sure whether you really like the house and the neighborhood, and not sure fit for you and the family, you're not sure whether the house is not fit for you and the family. And scheme available, there are schemes available, like for example, Prima Home Rental, Maybank's House Key, and Scheme Smart Sewa to Ownership. Now, there are many other schemes, and different schemes have different terms. So the first home buyer need to read the term and do a property due diligence, check the surrounding rental and the house price in the surrounding rental, then can start leverage on this scheme. Generally, a rent-to-own scheme is ideal for the first home buyer who have yet to build a good credit score to qualify for a home loan, and for those who do not have the fund required for the down payment. Essentially, under the rent-to-own scheme, at the end of the contract, the buyer can then choose to purchase the property from the developer. The difference between rent-to-own and a regular renter or property purchase is that buyer get to lock in the current purchase price when they first sign the contract with developer. Example, in year 1, when the buyer signed the lease contract with developer with a lock-in price, let's say over the year 5, when the house price increase, the buyer can choose to buy from a developer at the price at the beginning of the lock-in price. And if the price drop, the buyer then can choose not to buy from the developer. Additionally, the part of the rent paid can be converted towards as a down payment. And note that different schemes have different terms. The first home buyer need to check and read carefully of the term stated in the contract. Now, before I go to the last slide, which is summary slide, since I still have a little bit of time, let me pull back this slide, Malaysia House Price Index and Growth, for discussion. Now, in front of you, this slide, as you can see, in 2010, index point of 100, it grew, the index point grew to 2020 of 200, which means house price doubled in 2010 to 2020. As for the growth percentage, as you can see, it grows from 11, 14, 11% again, and then most of the year above 6%. Question: when is the best timing to buy property? Is it from 2010 to 2017, which the growth percentage above 6%, of which few of the years increased more than 10%, or from 2018 to 2020, which is slowing in terms of growth percentage? A, during this period, or B? Now, in fact, the best time to buy property is C, during 2008 and 2009. Why? If you can recall, in 2008, September, Lehman Brothers, the fourth largest bank in America, declared bankrupt. On the same day, Merrill Lynch, the third largest wealth management company, was took over by Bank of America. The next day, Standard & Poor downgraded America's top insurance company, AIG, which caused AIG share price drop and crash. And this part of financial crisis in America and spread to the rest of the world, become global financial crisis. Question: would you buy properties during global financial crisis? For those who have bought properties in 2008 and 2009, you will have enjoyed the price increase from 2010 to 2020, which have been double by now. If not double, would be 80 or 90%. In fact, during global financial crisis, quite a number of potential buyer, investor stay sidelined. They wait and see. If potential buyer and knowledge knew that property price will behave in this trend, in this pattern, I'm sure they would have bought the properties. We cannot go back to 2008 and 2009 to buy property anymore. And no one will sell you at that price. But I have seen some of the similarity of event, campaign, government activity, government action, and characteristic that happened in 2008, which happened again in 2019 and 2020. Let's see one by one. 2008 and 2009, global financial crisis. 2019, 2020, global health crisis. One similarity. In 2008 and 2009, Bank Negara cut interest rate 4 times. Quarter point, 4 times. From 6% drop to 5%. The aim is to fit higher domestic consumption and lower the burden of the borrower. Similarly, in 2019, no, actually 2020, similarly in 2020, Bank Negara cut interest rate 4 times. 4 times, and it dropped from a total of 1.25%, which bring down the interest rate at the lowest in the history. Now, financial crisis in 2008, health crisis in this period, 2019 and 2020. Bank Negara cut interest rate 4 times. Here, Bank Negara also cut interest rate 4 times. In 2008, due to slow in sales activity, the developer creatively worked out DIBS, Developer Interest Bearing Scheme, which during construction period, developer will absorb the bank interest and home buyer just pay the down payment and no need to do anything. And bank will pay the interest until project completed. Similarly, in 2019 and 2020, developer given at least 10% discount in HOC, home ownership campaign. Developer also give you a high rebate, 10%, 15, or even 20%. Another similarity, do you still remember? In 2008, bank offer 595 package, which the borrower are allowed to borrow up to 95%, which is higher than normal of 90%. Before 2008, borrower only allowed to borrow maximum 90%. In this case, borrower are allowed to borrow up to 95%. Under my first home scheme, which I have shared earlier slide, borrowers are allowed to borrow up to 110%. One more. In 2008 and 2009, due to slow property transaction, government abolished real property gain tax, or RPGT, of which prior to 2008, at least for about 19 years, RPGT rate had never changed, which is 30, 20, 15, 5. When the buyer sell their house in year 1, they have to pay 30% of the RPGT from the profit made. So 30, 20, 15, 5. Government given RPGT exemption for those who sell their residential property between June 2020 to December of 2021. With those similarity, initiative, event, and government action, after 2023 and beyond, do you think property price will increase like the pattern of 2010 to 2020? Summary. Property price double past 10 years. This proves that property investment is very rewarding in long term. Unemployment rate increase and trending positive when economy open up. Interest rate, the lowest. This create a very good entry point for the first home buyer. Quick government respond with moratorium on financing. This helped the borrower to defer the loan installment by 6 months. Non-performing loans ratio less than 2%, which means 98% of the loan borrower service their loan on time. 12 months value and volume V-shaped recovery, as you can see for the chart earlier, when economy open up. It is a buyer's market now. First home buyer should take the opportunity of my first home scheme, HOC, rent to own scheme, and invest and buy your first home. Last but not least, buy according to your means. When I say buy according to your means, it's not only have a cash for the down payment and also can pay for the installment. Need to have a buffer cash in the case of critical time, like what happened in the past 2 years. In the past, I used to advise buyer to keep buffer cash of 6-month installment. Now that with the heat of health crisis and the lockdown experience, I would advise buyer to keep buffer cash of 10 to 12 months installment. So to reduce your risk. With that, I end my sharing. I end my presentation. Thank you very much. Happy house hunting.